getting started a little late today. Sorry about that. We are doing yoga for stress today. So, nice, slow, gentle class. We're going to work on the chakra center. So, in the teachings of yoga, there are these wheels of power that they teach about. And basically, they're energetic centers that we can focus on and thinking about certain ways to move energy in these spaces can be meditative and also somewhat healing. You can think about cleansing and healing. You do not have to know all about them. You just follow along, focus, and you don't have to particularly believe in them scientifically or otherwise. You can just follow along, use it as a meditative experience. Interestingly enough, the energetic centers are precisely where we have nerve bundles. So it is interesting that we think about these energetic centers really where we do have nerve bundles. So we do have more energy in these spaces. So we're going to start on our back. Have a chair handy if you're not 100% comfortable sitting in easy seat. Have a chair, make sure you're comfortable. Start to land on your back. Start to really arrive and ground and arrive in the room. Letting go of any of the distractions of things that have been, things that have yet to happen, and starting to really arrive in the moment. Get to know what is present. So get to know your emotional state, your physical state, your mental state, what's going on for you today, and take a few moments to really land on the mat and get to know that. Really taking some time to be present for yourself, taking some time for you. The whole practice of yoga is supposed to get to know yourself, explore, get to know everything about yourself so that you can better function in the world. So take that time to ground. And having your chair handy in case we need to use it later. So feel your hips on the ground. And many of us of recent are sitting more than perhaps we used to. So really start to feel your hips, get to know what's going on in your low back. Maybe even press your low back into the ground with a little tilt of the pelvis and then bring it back to the natural curve a couple of times just to see what is present. If you tilt and flatten your back, what do you feel in the muscles? If you let the curve come back, what do you feel in the muscles? Bring your feet to the ground with your knees up. So rather than laying with your legs long, bring your feet to the ground with your knees up. And let your knees soften in towards each other. See if you can get softer around the low back and the hips. And then send all of your awareness around your hips, around your low back, around the torso, across the front of the hips. Feel the glutes. Feel all these fight or flight muscles. So these muscles that fire up first, getting us ready to flee. So the glutes, the thighs, the muscles of the stomach getting ready to run. Really feel what is present here. Maybe even taking your fingers to your stomach. Take a little wiggle around with your fingers and notice if there's any tension across the front of the hips, maybe even into the sides of the torso. Really getting to know if you have any gripping here. So just feeling what's present and then thinking about the shoulders. Notice if they're pulling up off the ground. And thinking about them pulling up off the ground, think about your breath. Think about the fact that we pull in fresh oxygen and we send it to our muscles. for use, and then think about pulling in fresh air intentionally and sending it across the front of the chest, maybe having the chest soften more and more. And with each breath, inhaling fresh across the chest and shoulders, and exhaling, perhaps releasing a little tension and allowing the shoulders to drop a little with each exhale. If they're still tight and still pulling, perhaps taking a little wiggle of the head, noticing if the pulling is up into the neck. And then watching to see if you're flattening the back of your neck down to the ground, maybe taking the chin a little more to the ceiling. And if they're still pulling, perhaps taking your fingers in just underneath the rib cage and just feeling if there's any tension here. And if there is, allowing your breath to fill up your lungs nice and slow while you're pulling your fingers apart gently on the muscles right here, just underneath the rib cage. Notice if that allows your shoulders to slowly drop a little more to the ground. Really being intentional with your breath. Inhaling fresh energy and exhaling tension. And then allow your palms to soften face up to the ceiling. Arms onto the ground wherever your arms and shoulders are most comfortable. And check in on your mental state. So how is the mind today? Is it running all over the place with the to-do list? Is it worrying and fretting? Are you feeling slow and sluggish in your thoughts, or rapid and anxious? And getting to know them rather than getting to judge, rather than judging. So rather than thinking about whether you should or should not be thinking a certain way, just get to know the patterns of your thoughts. And then thinking about your emotional state. So maybe when you were thinking about muscular tension in the torso, did you notice anything in around the kind of emotional center, the place where we feel our tension, our emotions? So often, like butterflies in the stomach or nerves, we feel them right underneath the rib cage in our stomach in this space. Maybe you notice some tension here. Maybe you notice some tension pulling across the chest, and that can add to a feeling of anxiety. So really just getting to know, how are you feeling at present without judgment? And maybe you feel more than one way. Notice that it's possible to feel a little stressed and a little at peace at the same time. So you're starting to slow, you're starting to land on the mat. Maybe you're starting to feel a little more peaceful and at ease, but maybe you're still feeling tight across the chest and still a little bit of that anxious feeling is gripping on. Notice that two opposite things can be present at the same time. And as you lay and breathe, imagine allowing space for whatever emotion is present to just be present. as if it's just an energy moving in the body, a natural state, just like the waves of your breath. Natural state, a filter for our environment, letting us know what is going on. Start to see it as a wave, a movement of energy, and something that doesn't need to be controller of our whole being. So we can allow it space, we can see and feel its presence, but we can let the cognitive head stop worrying about what it is. So try to imagine a space between. So the cognitive head does the thinking and the emotional state does the feeling, and they don't need to be tangled up and fighting each other. And then bring some soft wiggles to the toes. Start to feel the feet on the ground. Start to take a couple of sways with the knees, just starting to wake back up a little bit, starting to feel the muscles of the body. We're going to work through the physical layer of the body just in a meditative way. So we're really trying to think about removing stress from the body, not building muscular strength today. Just finding tightness, finding tension, trying to release it and breathe through any tension, letting go of what's ready to be let go of. So then bring your feet about hip width apart, a comfortable space from your glutes. So too close and maybe your knees are tight and your pelvis tilts, too far away and maybe you're pulling on your low back. So find that place where you're comfortable. Only you know that position. Land your feet on the ground without gripping with the toes, and we're going to move and breathe through the hip space, through the base. So we're going to inhale as we lift the hips, exhale as we lower. Start to move with your breath. Start to do this without gripping. So we're going to engage the backs of the legs, engage the glutes as we lift and as we lower. However, not so tight that we're pulling to our fullest strength. We're pulling to our fullest extension. And we're also going to try to pull the hips up with the muscles in front of the hips, the lower stomach muscles. We want to leave the rib cage on the ground. We're just thinking about our base. Leave the rib cage on the ground. Try to make sure there's no tension in the neck. Try not to tuck the chin all the way down and pull the back of the neck. Lift the chin to the ceiling. Make room for your breath as you inhale, lift, and exhale, lower. Explore any natural pauses in your breath. Allow them. Maybe you have a natural pause when you inhale. Maybe you have a natural pause when you exhale. Maybe making them a little bit longer. Or maybe playing with where your natural pause is and switching it. So if you inhale and pause, try inhaling, then exhaling and pausing, and see how it feels. Explore. Make this your practice, your experience. Lower the hips to the ground. Take a little shuffle. Make sure the low back is nice and soft. And we're really going to work through the hip space. So really thinking about right across the hips. We're going to take a little tilt of the hips. So we're going to tilt the hips, just lift them just a teeny bit, and then lower. So inhale as you tilt, exhale as you lower. So nice and soft everywhere else, just slightly using the glutes and slightly using the thighs and the lower stomach. Again, not overexerting the muscles. We're just looking to locate what is present. Tilts and lower, moving with your breath. Land the hips, take a little side sway with the knees, soften the low back. We're going to think about the muscles in the stomach, so a little higher up this time. And a couple of ways you can do this. If you are not super strong in the core, you can grab your chair and place your feet onto the chair and start to engage. So press your hips down into the ground with the muscles of the stomach and press your rib cage down into the ground with the muscles of the stomach. If you like, you can take your fingertips into the muscles of the stomach and remind your muscles which ones you want to be using. Be mindful that the back is not doing all the work here. You can press your heels down into the chair just to give you a little more firing up of your legs and a little more reminder of the front of the stomach to work. If you're not using the chair and you are strong in the stomach, you can lift and hover your feet. So lots of engagement here. This should already feel like your stomach is engaged. Press the rib cage down. Keeping this engagement, check in on your neck. See if your neck is nice and soft, chin to the ceiling, hands out to the ground. Trying to keep this engagement. We're going to draw the right foot up to the ceiling, lower, draw the left foot up to the ceiling. So nice and slow, just working through, holding a little energy in the stomach, not too strong. And then bring your knees in towards the chest. Give yourself a little hug, rock. Soften, find your breath. You can keep your feet up onto the chair or place your feet on the ground with your knees up. Get the lower body nice and soft and comfortable. So lower body now soft. We're going to work on upper body. So bringing your hands out to the ground about 45 degrees. So not quite close to the hips, not all the way up to the shoulders, about halfway between. Land your hands on the ground. Watch for the muscles of the neck. Make sure the neck is nice and soft. We're going to press into our hands and see if we can locate the muscles of the arms and across the top of the chest. Press into the hands. Try to keep the lower back soft. So pressing, 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 and then we're going to pulse on and let go. Pulse on, press, press, press. Breathe in and press. Exhale, let go. Inhale, press. Exhale, let go. Watching for tension in the neck. If the neck is really firing up, take a second just to press the back of the head into the ground. Inhale, and then exhale, let it go. And try to keep it all across the front of the shoulders. Flip the palms. Press the backs of the hands into the ground. And now perhaps locating some of the muscles across the back of the shoulders. Again, trying to keep the neck and the low back soft. Press, inhale, exhale, let go. Press as you inhale, exhale, let go. let go, check in on the neck. We're going to roll on over to our stomachs nice and slow. If you have the chair in the way, make sure you move your chair out of the way. Go on down to your stomach. So now we're going to think about all of our stomach being a little compressed. Bring one hand on top of the other, forehead down, crocodile pose. Shimmy the hips, loosen and soften. Think about the muscles around the breathing. Think about it being gently massaged as you breathe in. Your breath fills your lungs. And you feel a little compression on the floor. Bring a little bit of focus to the point on your forehead that is touching your hands. Bring some focus to the tops of your feet and press the tops of your feet into the ground. Notice what muscles in your legs fire up. Squeeze the glutes a little and allow your legs to fire up some more. See if you can find some muscles in your legs and the muscles in your feet. Take a deep breath in and then let everything soften with the exhale. Take the right leg up just above the ground, hover and squeeze. And then imagine someone pulled your leg and made it a little longer. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then lower the leg. Take the left leg up, squeeze and hover. Imagine someone pulled it, made it longer. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then allow it to come down. Take a little side sway of the hips, loosen and soften. And then we'll move and breathe, thinking about all of the muscles of the back, but going nice and slow and gentle. So we're going to lift our shoulders with the inhale and exhale, lower the shoulders. So thinking about using all the muscles of the back, the legs, the glutes, the low back, the mid back, and trying to keep the muscles of the neck not straining, so not yanking your skull backwards, but imagining getting longer from the tailbone to the crown of the head, making more space for your spine as you find all the muscles of your back, perhaps locating some tension. And then we're going to move and breathe a little less engaged this time. So really thinking about removing holding patterns. Inhale, so you press in your hands wide. And then exhale, lower left shoulder to the ground, towards the ground as you look at the right foot. Inhale, center, and then right shoulder towards the ground, look at the left foot. Moving soft, as if undoing holding patterns, having your own experience. So maybe rolling the shoulders in a circle, maybe engaging the arm and keeping the shoulder up and just turning. Experiment with what feels right for how your shoulders are feeling. Moving with your breath. Noticing as you move, perhaps there's some gripping in the low back or in the glute. Checking in, noticing your neck, softening your face. And then bring it center and take your forearms down to the ground. Elbows not underneath your shoulders. Make some space. Forearms press down onto the ground lightly. And then we're going to pull from the stomach muscles and the chest muscles, leaving our arms where they are. Pull like you're pulling the elbows back towards you, back towards the belly button. And then lift and lengthen without pulling the head backwards. So we're making space, lifting up out of the ground, using the muscles of the chest. Engaging the arms slightly. Start to breathe. And then we're going to think about our throat. So really thinking about opening up, lengthening. Start to breathe a little more firmly. So I'm breathing in and breathing out, trying to add a little compression of the breath on the exhale on the back of the throat. And then we're going to cleanse with a lion's breath. So we inhale in and ha out with our tongue out. We're going to do that 3 times and then return to crocodile. So really thinking about really firmly cleansing the breath with a loud ha sound. And if I can do this on video, you can do this at home, nice and free without embarrassment. So breathe in deeply. 3 times out. Ha. 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 And then return to crocodile pose. Shimmy the hips. Notice what is present, perhaps in the head, perhaps in the throat. See if you can soften the shoulders a little more. See if you can imagine the weight of gravity pulling your ribcage a little heavier into the ground. And then slowly make your way to a tabletop position. Setting up with your hands wide, wider than shoulders, further ahead of shoulders. So making space for your wrists, making space for your arms and shoulders. And we're going to take big circles. So we're going to start to think about our chakra energy power centers. So we're going to think about our base right around our tailbone, front and back. And we're going to, if you like to think about the colors, we're thinking red. And we're thinking about our sense of grounding. So think about your hands and feet on the ground. Feel your hands and feet on the ground as you think about your tailbone space. And take some slow circles with the hips. Breathing in, slow, soft, refreshing breath. And releasing any tension with the exhale. Thinking about the earth, thinking about grounding, your sense of home, your sense of security. And then reverse your circles. Notice if one way felt nicer than the other way. And then bring it back to tabletop and slowly make your way to a seated position. If you are using the chair, come on up to your chair. I'm going to use the chair. You can stay in an easy seat. Remember, there are no prizes for being in the perfect yogi chair. No prizes for easy seat. Come to a place where you are comfortable, where your hips are comfortable, and you can get long in the spine. So start to think about your base again. Think about your feet. Feet in easy seat or on the ground, feet in the chair or on the ground. Think about your base. Think about your hips. So think about grounding. And then just above our hips, we're going to think about right about belly button center. So we think about these energy centers being close to the spine, and they have a front and the back. So right around the navel is your your sensual center, creative center. So this is an orange color if you just want to be visual and think about orange swirling balls of energy. You want to think about your creativity, your creative space. And to think about this space. Think about being grounded in the hips and then moving upwards. And then little soft circles, teeny circles, thinking about moving from the navel. And you can even bring your fingertips to the muscles of the stomach so that you're really thinking about bringing the circles right here. Not huge circles, we're not moving through the spine. We're just thinking about little tiny squeezy circles. So using the muscles of the stomach, using these oblique muscles to move us around. Nice slow cleansing breath. And then reverse your circles and again, check in, see which way felt nicer. Notice if you're trying to use the muscles of the low back or the glutes to make the circles, really try and make them with the stomach muscles. And then bring yourself back to a neutral space. Think about your base again, being nice and grounded in the hips, even in the hips, tall in the spine, long in the spine. Well, we're going to think about right in between the rib cage, the solar plexus space. And here they often refer to as a burning sun, a yellow burning sun. And when we think about this being our emotional center, emotions often burn as hot as the sun. So beginning by warming your hands, warm your hands by rubbing them together. And then place them one over top of the other, doesn't matter which is on top, right in this space. And think about fiery, burning sun. Hot, moving energy right here at our emotional center. And then thinking about the muscles of the stomach again, thinking about squeezing them gently in towards the spine. Tiny squeeze of the muscles without moving the spine. Squeeze the stomach muscles. Think about warmth around this space. We're going to take our hands together, outstretched, interlace the fingers except the index fingers. Thinking about that sun space, we're going to move the rib cage slightly forward and slightly back. Small, tiny movement. So this is not cat-cow. Small, tiny movement coming from just underneath the rib cage space. Finding those muscles. Push forward and back. Really pushing the lower ribs forward and back. Think about generating a little heat in this space. So really squeezing the muscles a little bit and generating some heat. And then bring yourself back to neutral. Focusing on this space, perhaps imagining yellow fiery sun, ball of energy right here. And we'll move up to our heart center, so right in the center of the chest. Often green or pink is the color associated with this space. Rub your hands together again, make them nice and warm, one over top of the other. Doesn't matter which way. Feel this space, and we often think of our heart center being our emotional center. However, in the teachings, they teach us that this is the space of unconditional love. So the kind of love that no matter what happens, it just doesn't go away. Unconditional love. Perhaps easiest to remind us of this center, this kind of feeling, is to think about a pet that we loved unconditionally, even when they soiled the carpet or did something terrible like ate your shoes. You look at those eyes and you cannot help but love them, no matter what. Connect to that feeling. Sometimes it's far more complicated, though we do love other people very unconditionally. There are memories that get in the way and cloud this space. So really stay with a pet, a beloved pet, and think about that feeling and think about it softly spreading across the chest. That feeling, that opening, that unconditional love. And leaving our hands here, we're going to take little spirals with the rib cage, thinking about moving from the sternum this time. So thinking about moving from this space, little tiny spirals. And again, not through the spine, but just thinking about tiny spirals with the muscles of the stomach, spine long. Hands on our heart center, middle of the chest. And then back the other way. Notice if one way feels better than the other. And then bring your hands down to your lap, soften the shoulders, ground back down. So feeling your roots, feeling taller, taller, taller through the crown of the head. And then we'll come on up to the throat space. So thinking about the space between the chin and the collarbone. Color associated here is blue. So maybe beginning to start to think of a blue ball of energy right in the center of your throat, swirling, cleansing, moving freely. And then bring your hands together, interlace the fingers, clasping the hands together. We're going to imagine that same blue ball of energy inside our hands. So we're going to imagine opening up the elbows, opening the hands, and opening our ball of energy, and then slowly compressing it. As we do this, we're going to lift the chin as we inhale. Exhale as we bring it back down. So our hands are not resting against our throat. We are not pushing into the neck. Hands are above, and we're using this idea to think of opening and extending, lifting the chin, and then a little compression. Think about the same thing happening in your throat. So inhale, lift. Exhale, as you breathe out, little compression on the back of the throat as if squeezing energy through the throat. Massaging the back of the throat. Inhale, and exhale, squeeze the breath out. You can inhale and exhale through the nose, or you can inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, whichever feels better. Thinking about this blue ball of energy moving, cleansing. Mindful of the back of the neck. This is not a huge extension or tension in the neck. We're thinking about the throat. And then lower the hands, soften the shoulders, tall in the spine. Remember your grounding, find your hips, find your breath. Our next center of energy is right at the top of the spine, the very center of the brain. So bring all of the fingertips to touch on both hands and feel the fingertips touching. And then bring your focus to the top of the spine, right in the center of the brain. Think about an energetic loop. So your feet are kind of sealed to the ground, or sealed ankles to the ground if they're crossed. Your hips sealed to the ground or sealed to the chair. Your fingertips sealed together. You're creating this kind of energetic loop in your body. And now bring all of your focus to your spine. The top of your spine, right in the center of the brain. The center of all the energy that runs through the body. The center that processes all the energy that runs throughout the body, the messages from the brain to the toes, from the brain to the fingers, from the brain to the digestive system and the breathing, and then all the way back. And then we're going to do a little sweeping practice. So bring your hands to prayer. Bring your prayer, the backs of your thumbs, just at the top, bottom of your thumbs, to touch the center of the forehead. Connect with this. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, sweep your arms down as if you're letting something go. Inhale, sweep into the center of the head. Exhale, sweep your arms down, letting go. You can make this movement just through the arms. You can make it a little bigger, moving, letting go, sweeping. And then leave your prayer at your forehead center. Become nothing but this point in your forehead where your thumbs are touching. Notice nothing else. Bring all of your focus right here. And then slowly walk your focus to the crown of the head and let your arms soften into your lap. So thinking about that space at the top of the head, the crown of the head that's soft when a baby's born. And imagine it soft again. Imagining a little opening at the crown of the head, as if your skull's becoming lighter and this pressure of your head on your spine is a little less. Maybe as you start to imagine this energy loop opening and breathing in through the crown of your head and all the way down your spine, as if you're breathing in fresh energy down the spine, and exhaling anything no longer needed out through the crown of the head, nice and soft and gentle. For our resting pose. So making your way slowly to the ground, grabbing your props, resting pose. So make sure that you're going into your comfort pose. As we've had the chair available, you can place your legs on the chair. A couple of things to watch for when you're doing that. So if when you land on the ground and place your legs on the chair, you have a tendency for your hips to kind of open and your knees to fall out, place something between your legs and the edge of the chair so that you can rest your knees, your legs, find something rather than just flopping around in space. They land on something. We use bolsters, but you can use a blanket. I don't have it handy right now. But you can use a blanket just to place. You want your body to feel support and find ways to release muscle tension. So when you're just kind of flopping in space, let's say your feet are hanging off a bolster, your muscles still engage a little bit because they're not able to find support. So you want to find a lot of support. You're going to come to a resting pose, and we're going to go into a chakra meditation. So taking your time to set up, taking your time to find your comfort items. Preferably this is done on your back, but you can do it laying down on your stomach if that works more for you. We just kind of want our spine nice and long so we can think about this meditation, move through it. So start to soften into the ground. Start to notice any muscles that are still gripping. Take some wiggles. Try to have this low back nice and soft. And we'll begin at our base, the base of our spine. Sense of grounding, sense of security, sense of home. So sometimes this can be one of the hardest ones to work with for a lot of people, especially if you move a lot, you don't have a strong sense of home, maybe you've got some trauma in your world. Home and security can be a big, big issue. So try to narrow it down to something a lot smaller. We don't need to solve our sense of security in this moment right now forever. But think about it as a little building block. Think about this moment in time. So take in your environment, get to know where you are, really notice the sounds, notice what you see, know where you are. And then take a moment to say to yourself, right here in this moment, all of my needs are met. I can soften, I can let go. So we're intentionally telling our fight or flight system that we can rest and digest. No more fight and flight, even if it's just for a brief moment. Try to let go of that solving, fixing, desire to be completely healed and perfect. And just for this moment in time, feel grounded and secure in your own body in this moment in time. And then visually, we're going to think about that red ball of energy slowly swirling around our tailbone, the red of the deepest center of the earth, swirling, free, soft, fresh energy moving. And if the energy balls don't really work for you visually, you can picture flowers growing, rooted down in the earth and glowing up towards the light. And then you're going to travel slowly up the spine to the navel center and find the next ball of energy, our creative energy. Orange ball of energy moving and swirling. And all of the energy centers and the teachings are all intertwined. We separate parts of ourselves so that we can help to understand ourselves, but they're all not really separate. They all move and swirl and are part of a whole system. So we're just breaking them up to think about them and meditate through them. However, our sense of creativity is linked to our sense of security and our sense of emotion and our sense of unconditional love. They're all linked. So think about this space, creative space. Think about freely moving, beautiful, fresh energy. Either a swirling orange ball or a beautiful growing orange flower. And here say to yourself, I am free to be creative. And if you don't feel like you're saying it with conviction, utter it a couple of times. Say it until you feel like you believe it, you feel it. I am free to be creative. And then just a few more inches up the spine to the solar plexus space, just below the rib cage. Thinking about the fiery power of the sun, beautiful golden yellow, swirling, burning, fresh, fiery energy. And really thinking about that. Fiery energy, emotional center. Thinking about emotions as being fiery balls of energy and thinking about allowing them to be free in this space, to move. As if you can start to imagine them coming in and coming out, coming in and coming out. Watching them float by like clouds in a sky. Float in, float by. Float in and float by. Thinking about feeling your emotional space without being entangled or torn up by your emotional space. Letting it come in, see it, feel it, let it go. And saying here to yourself with conviction, I feel my emotions. See it as if giving yourself permission to feel your emotions. And then slowly walk your attention right to the center of the chest, metaphysical heart center, center of unconditional love. Select either green or pink energy moving freely here, or a flower blossoming and blooming here. Think about fresh life, glowing, fresh, moving energy. And if you are particularly prone to building walls around your heart space and clamping in and closing in, perhaps thinking about this energy moving and softening and sweeping away some of the walls that are no longer needed. Not as if you're bashing them down, but thanking them for the job that they've done, being grateful for the protection they gave, and being ready to let them go. I'm thinking about an open heart, being not that you're beginning to believe that nothing will ever go wrong, but that you're beginning to believe that you can give yourself some unconditional love when things go wrong, and that you can hold yourself up and you can get through. Beginning to believe in unconditional love and your own power to get through. Your own power to support yourself and love yourself unconditionally. And start to allow some of these walls to soften. Thinking about unconditional love for ourselves not being an act of selfish, not being an act to boost our own egos, but being an act of being kind and forgiving with ourselves for all of our mistakes and all of the things that we have felt perhaps gave us shame. And letting the ties and the bonds go of the past, not forgetting that they ever happened, but that as if a memory has a little string that attaches itself to your heart center, and you're just going to gently chop the string and allow the memory to be a memory and not have it be a hold on your heart center. And then slowly walk your attention to the center of the throat, our space of truth. Actually, walk your attention back down to your heart. Before we move on to our throat, we're going to say to ourselves, I love myself unconditionally, and give yourselves a few moments to say that. I love myself unconditionally. And try it a couple of times. See if you can say it and feel it and believe it. And then slowly walk your way up to your throat. Blue ball of energy or blue flower. Thinking about fresh life, fresh space, fresh energy. Our center of truth. So thinking about words, deeds, and actions being in line with our inner purpose, in line with our moral compass, our heart center, our spirit, perhaps even in line with our higher power. Our words, deeds, and actions are truth. So here thinking about letting go of perhaps words, deeds, and actions that we have had in the past that were not in line with our truth, with who we feel in our core we were meant to be. And we know when our words, deeds, and actions are not in line with this. And we feel it throughout our whole physical body. And sometimes we clamp down on it in our throat space, really clamping down, regretting the things that we've said, regretting the things that we have not said that we should have. So thinking about being in line with our truth and softening fresh energy in our throat space, being willing to let go of, again, not the words, deeds, and actions, but the little ties that tie us, the burden that continues to torment us. And here saying to yourself, I am free to speak my truth. And again, say it with love, compassion, and conviction. And then slowly walk yourself to the center of the brain, right on top of the spinal cord. The center of the brain. Our intuition space. So here, often a purple ball of energy, purple flower. Thinking about it being a cleansing, growing, beautiful light. And thinking about it being very tied to all the other parts of ourselves. That only when we are grounded, only that when we are creative, only when our emotions are free to move as they move without worry, without the cognitive head being tied into it. And only when we are in line with our unconditional love and our truth is our intuition free to move and guide us. Our intuition guides us when we are in balance and at peace. And our cognitive head likes to get in the way, or our ego likes to get in the way and tell us things and whisper that it is our intuition. But again, our whole physical being knows when that is not the truth. And rather than forcing and thinking and trying to cognitively get into our intuition, just think about this space being clean and free, cleansed, giving it some unconditional love, giving it some trust, and knowing that when all of ourself is in line and in balance, it guides us gently. And here perhaps saying, I trust my intuition. Not allowing the cognitive head to ask questions, to search, to look, to demand, but just allowing this space to be soft, free, balanced, and ready to hear whatever you need to hear to guide you. And finally, the crown of our head. This is either a 1,000-petal flower or a brilliant violet light softening at the crown of our head, and it is our connection to something other than ourselves. So this can be, yoga teaches us not a religious practice, it teaches us to be more in tune with whatever religious beliefs we have. It allows space for whatever religion or spirituality we have. And this need not be something that you must adhere to. So it can be much simpler. Religious belief or spiritual belief, if you do not already have a practice, can be simpler. So we can think about it as that time where we saw a sunset and our breath was taken away. We're just so in awe. That is connection to something greater than you. That is that feeling of your spark inside connecting with something outside of you. When you see a baby giggle and you can't help but giggle back, that is a connection of your light with the baby's light. It is it's not cognitive, it is not so much emotional, it is part of your inner light connecting suddenly. It's that sudden connection. So think about something like that that's happened for you, or if you have a higher power and you have a prayer or a mantra or something, think about that. Think about connecting yourself, your whole being, to something outside of yourself. Think about connecting and growing as if when you connect to that beautiful sunset, your own light glows and grows and cleanses and becomes more in balance, more at ease. And here, unless you have already a prayer or a mantra or some belief that you are working on, you are looking for something to utter to yourself in this space. I am connected. And think about that meaning, something so much more than just you as this person on this earth, in this body, but we're all connected. There's something about our own hum that is unique, and also something about our own hum that is present in almost everything else on the planet. Creatures have a hum, trees have a hum, plants have a hum. We have a hum that's even present in the air that we breathe. There's a hum in the universe, the twinkling of the stars. And I like to think about the fact that the stars are kind of made up of almost the same thing that we're made up of. We're all connected. Everything is connected, and we all move in the same space, share this energy. And try not to think about that with the cognitive head, the mind. The mind serves a purpose that helps us understand, it helps us live in our world, but it doesn't need to be the guider of everything. Allow yourself to think about connection, however that works for you. Thinking about softening and no longer being this closed-in little space of one, and being soft and open and connected. And if you have the time to spend further in your resting pose and you feel that you need it, go ahead and practice just softening in, thinking about being fully balanced in the energetic centers. So thinking about energy being able to move up and down your spine with freshness and ease without holding patterns and gripping. And whenever the cognitive mind draws you away, perhaps just softening back in at the crown, or if you noticed one particular center of energy was more difficult than the other, focusing in here and softening back into that space. Just practice. Meditation is not about getting everything perfect and never having the to-do list to pop up and distract you, never having your environment distract you. It's a practice, just like working a muscle. It's just a practice. So working to forgive yourself and move back in gently. If you need to finish up at the 60-minute mark, we are already at the 60-minute mark. We started a little late today. So begin to bring yourself back to present moment in time. Take some wiggles. If you had your feet on the chair, make sure you take some circles with your hands on your legs. If you really were at rest, sometimes you can have some creaks and groans. And just make sure you bring some circulation and bring your knees in together with your hands, bring them in towards your chest, and then curl up in a little ball in the fetal position. And take some time to just ground down and arrive back in present moment. Thinking about the walls of our heart space, and perhaps thinking about them being left on the mat, without cognitively needing to understand what they might be, what memories they were. Just imagine getting up to your seated position a little lighter, a little softer. And bring your hands to heart space. Prayer at heart space. Connecting to your own spiritual guide, your own center. And taking a little moment to honor that light within you. And then imagine the light within you reaching out and connecting with and honoring the light within someone else. And you can imagine that person in front of you. You can imagine them receiving that connection, that unconditional love. And notice the light within you, the unconditional love center, expands when you share it. That sending in love gives you more love to give out, and that sending out love seems to recharge this space, not deplete it. And the light within me sees and honors the light within you. Thank you so much for joining me.